where is the shadow inventory? There is a growing theme that the upcoming shadow inventory is going to hit the market. It is going to flood the market. Let's be very clear. Flood the market. It's going to overwhelm demand, and we are going to finally have the housing crash after 12 consecutive years of Crash Bros and Crash Sisters calling for it. So I thought we should talk about shadow inventory. I think there are some pockets of shadow inventory. I do think that some of them are overblown, but I think we should talk about it, guys. And I had my good friends Dion and Matt with me. Dion, how you doing?
Howdy, I'm doing great. I think our videos go very well when we're here, as opposed to Matt's channel, who just randomly keeps turning on every couple of months on a live stream and actually turns his camera on and you see an empty chair. It's amazing when it happens. But
What
I'm
pisses me
excited for
off
this
is like
topic.
it gets more views than when I'm on.
That's the sad part, because all the
Yeah.
comments. There's
Yeah.
literally hundreds of comments going on when that happens.
Oh,
Uh,
it's dear God, that's so funny.
I'm
Oh
looking
man.
forward to this topic because a lot of people reference the shadow inventory. What happens if a bunch of foreclosures came through and we had a flood of inventory? What if a whole bunch of people died because of the age or retired and downsized or whatever, and all of these inventory things come in? It's kind of like people saying people are getting laid off. People can't afford to buy a house. The government needs to lower interest rates, forgetting that we raised interest rates to cause those two things. So the Fed has levers. They pull different levers when they keep assets on their books, when they sell assets, when they raise or lower interest rates. Some of those levers hit both sides. So when we say, what about shadow inventory? What if there's a sudden surge of inventory? There would be a sudden surge in demand.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're seeing a crash in transactions, not because buyers disappeared, because buyers had less buying power and inventory went away. The rate lock,
Yeah.
it's more expensive to borrow capital to build. So, and then builders are having to make concessions right now. If you're a builder and you keep seeing videos on all of these builders selling their deals right now, have to buy your rate down, have to lower their prices. How many projects are you planning for next year?
No, it's not coming.
Right.
Yeah. Matt, how you doing?
I'm doing great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my take on this is like what you and I talked about. I did a video on it, the Airbnb bust, right? Everyone's
Yeah.
like, oh, Airbnb. You talked about it a little bit with your on your Meet Kevin interview, which was absolutely amazing, that you guys should totally check out and make sure that you're commenting on the video there, because quite frankly, Zoob's got the most street cred of any of the guests he has on when it comes to actual real estate investing. So the key in looking at Airbnb is that it's like your real estate market. It is hyper local. It's hyper local. There's going to be units, there's going to be places that outlaw it, and then there's still going to be people that are going around it, because you know what the fees are? They're a joke. They're like, if we catch you, it's $500. Oh my word. I made that in one night stay, so I'm kind of good. And so as people look at it, the Airbnb fallacy is exactly that. There's going to be markets that get hit with it. It's likely going to be, in all honesty, it's likely going to be in blue versus red markets. That's what I've seen so far based on my study. I just like to look at that stuff because does it show a trend? The trend does show it's blue markets mostly.
Yeah.
So as they continue to outlaw that, like something like 2% of Las Vegas's Airbnbs are actually registered Airbnbs. 2%. They have 3 people in the enforcement office. Good luck. Good luck. It's what you call a unfunded department.
Yeah.
And so I think that the shadow inventory, I look at Airbnb, that's the one that I hear the most often.
Yeah.
And it's going to come in some markets, but it's not going to come fast. And likely there will be some transition to rentals, because I still get 200 inquiries on every rental I post.
Yeah.
The last 3 places I rented, I didn't even need to advertise.
Wow. Yeah. So let's because I hear shadow inventory, and I actually think shadow inventory is a genius boogeyman for Crash Bros and Crash Sisters to create. I think it's genius. It's in the shadows. It's murky. Nobody can see it, but it's going to come and it's going to decimate the real estate market. Genius. I love it. I mean, they're so smart. I think they should stay on this one for a while. But let's break down the big buckets. So Airbnbs, short-term rentals. Really, what I hear people going for is the DSCR loans. I'm hearing more and more people talk about fraud in DSCR loans, right?
Sure.
Maybe they did a owner occ when they really had a short-term rental, which, I mean, I didn't read the documents, but that sounds like a big no-no to me, right? Mortgage fraud's a bad thing.
Yeah.
There's certainly some of that, right?
Sure.
There are folks in the mortgage business who have history in the mortgage business saying that we have competed or we are currently executing the same kind of level of mortgage fraud as the last time, which I think is laughable.
Come on.
But I do think it exists.
Of
Right. I
course.
think there's a kernel of truth. But the question I ask is, how big is that?
Yeah, it's small.
And it's on a national scale. I think you guys are, or I believe it's small. It's a fart in the wind. However, if you're in one of those markets, like, you bought another Airbnb in, Dollywood or wherever it is, you could probably get spanked. You're going to see some real pain. So I think there are going to be some very localized, acute, and very painful things.
Yep.
But on the national level, I think Matt, you hit it. I'm already seeing people out here go to midterm rentals.
Yeah.
Right. In my neighborhood where I live in Mountain View, we outlawed short-term rentals in our HOA, but we have to allow midterm. We have 30 days or longer. We have to allow.
Yep.
So people are going midterm.
Yep.
And I think a lot of people don't realize that, yeah, your Airbnb was bought a couple of years ago and your bookings are way down, but your mortgage debt is still remarkably low at 2.8 or 3.1 or whatever. So yeah, they're just making less money.
Right.
So at the end, Dion, I think there's some truth to some localized markets feeling a ton of pain from Airbnb and maybe some fraud. But I can't see it hitting national levels. What do you think?
So I don't see it hitting national levels either. And I do think that sensationalism is going to make small events seem like a major systemic thing. When it comes to things like shadow inventory, I also think we have to think of the timeline.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea is there could be an increase in unemployment. That doesn't cause immediate home loss. It's an increase in employment for a year. We might start to see the beginning of foreclosures. Right. And the average foreclosure is 1,200 days.
Yeah.
So 3 to 4 years before. So a year for the unemployment to impact the number of foreclosures that are going to happen. The foreclosures might not happen because people have equity. So there would be some sales there, but the people who do go to foreclosure, that would be another 3 or 4 years out. So we're talking 2028, 2029 before that unemployment foreclosure would hit the market. And so if you have between now and 2028 or 2029, I want you to think of what happened in 2009 and 2010, when we did have a massive wave of foreclosures because of all the toxic debt, which we just don't have now. And we had 51% adjustable rate mortgages. Now we hear between 8 and 13%. So it's a significantly smaller number. Where did the people that went through foreclosures go?
Yeah.
They became renters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if you have between now and 2028 to prepare, and you knew a wave of renters was coming, and rents would do for in Class C and B neighborhoods what they did in 2009, 10, 2021, 2022, spike by 30 to 40%. I think you'd want to be the person who between now and then acquired one rental at a time to be sitting there ready, cash flowing the whole time, and then having a massive wealth infusion when it happens.
Yeah, the other, because there's so many buckets. I just think it is genius for the Crash Bros to talk shadow inventory because it's this murky area. The other one is, to your point, let's talk about unemployment. Unemployment is going to spike, and it's going to create forced sellers as they look to liquidate or get foreclosed on. So there's obviously the timeline you've talked about, which is very true. But the other thing, Matt, you and I went through this last time. Banks' behavior is different. Have you guys not learned that the bank's behavior is different? I mean, how obvious do you have to realize that the banks tried to foreclose on everybody last time and they got their clocks cleaned?
That's correct.
They just had unemployment spike to 14%. They had 4 million folks in trouble. They stuck them in forbearance, and 1%. Yes, folks, 1% of this foreclosure crisis came with 14% unemployment. So, yeah, I think banks are going to extend and pretend for folks that, you know, have a chance. Yes, there'll be 1%, which, by the way, 1% of 4 million is like, you know, 40,000. So again, another fart in the wind for you crash bros. And to Dion's point, that's 40,000 in 2025. That's, you know, 2026. So Matt, you and I went through that. Banks are acting different, right?
1,000% different. They just did it with creating a 5% down conventional product and allowing that debt to be sold to Fannie Freddie. They just did it. That was step one. What's step two? 40-year mortgage. They did it in some small and unique cases, but they can then extend and pretend on the 40-year mortgage with other clients.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, Zub, you and I went through the chaos of 7, 8, 9, and 10. Chaos. And it was that. It was
no idea what was going on. It was
my
scary.
word. And yeah, I mean, in all honesty, that was a scary time to be an investor. That was scary.
That was scary.
Because you were just like, I mean, how much lower can this stuff go? Thankfully, we don't depend on appreciation for our market strategy. It's all about cash flow. The number of people that need houses increase in a bad time, don't decrease in a bad time. And so when we look at the market and kind of what that market looked like, it took years to repair. This is what the crash bros don't get, and what they need to go, you know, buy real estate crashes for dummies.
Yeah.
You know, buy the book and read it, because they don't understand that this stuff all takes time. And it unfolded. The worst year was 8.9% decline in pricing.
Right.
That was over a 5-year period, with the cumulative was about 28%. It took 5 years. 5 years, because it's coordinated. It's not a coordinated thing. It's different markets, different companies where they have a lot of concentration. Do you think, right? What happened to this big chain of bank failures that we were going to see after SVB went under? And then one other one. Where's the big chain of all these banks blowing up? They're not there. They're not there, because the Fed, the government, and regulators understand the chaos that failure creates in the system, and they do everything they can to avoid it. And what have we learned from them in the last 10 years? None of them have a problem writing a check out of the federal government. So while it might become an issue for our economy and our global standing, it still keeps the market where it's at. And now all the concerns about China and all these other places, that their economies are getting a little bit pukey and not showing anywhere near the growth. And now they're looking for the next big growth spot in India and all this other stuff. Guys, the real estate market ain't crashing. It's correcting at best. Correcting at best.
The other shadow inventory, guys, I hear about, and I'd love to hear about your local markets, is I think there's a talk track that builders have all of this shadow inventory, and it eventually is going to show up, and it will show up in mass, not like onesie twosie, you know, owner occupant stuff, but it's going to show up in mass, and it's again going to destroy the market. There is some track I think I'm hearing around build for rent being destructive to home prices, like they can't sell them, so they're going to what do you guys think about builders producing enough inventory to destroy the housing market? We'll go to Dion first.
Do we think builders are stupid?
Right? Yeah, stupid continually. Yeah.
The people who can handle the gymnastics required to get the licenses, acquire the funding, build the processes, manage the subs on like the intelligence level it takes to actually be a builder, can't see the writing on the wall when you hear things like builders are having to buy down rates, builders are having to lower prices. They're not going to be building next year. So the shadow inventory coming from builders, while there was some buildup when rates went down, that was, again, a drop of milk in a bucket of oil. It went away quick and spread. So I don't see builders being the next source of shadow inventory. And then we'll go to Matt. But the last thing I think that could be the topic for the crash bros on shadow inventory, I hear this often. And there's a theory, Mike, because you're the educated one here. When you have a small number and there's a percentage increase, it sounds scary.
Yeah.
I forget what the theory is, but so we had foreclosures were canceled for a year. So if foreclosures went up 1,000%, we're still at record lows. We had evictions canceled for a year. So if they went up, well, what we have now is the crash bros are harping on delinquency rates. So in 2009, we had a delinquency rate of 28%.
Wow.
Current delinquency rates as of September, current knowledge, 2.6%.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
So if we have a 10x, if it goes up 1,000%, yeah, we would hit 2009 areas. So we're going to see a 50% increase, 100% increase, and not notice. It's not going to change the amount of inventory that's on the market.
Yeah. So what do you think, Matt? I mean, you're out in the market all the time. What do you think about builders being the source of shadow inventory that's going to destroy housing?
No, they can't. They are so far behind on the lost decade. That's what I call it, the lost decade. That 10 years from 2010 to 2020, that is the lost decade of home building. It is. It just is what, like, I see construction everywhere. And you know what the crazy thing is? I see waiting lists of people trying to get in. I get 200 inquiries on my ho-hum, class B or C area, class B unit. I get 200 inquiries. Now, 95% of them should literally disconnect from society and go somewhere else because they're not making any efforts. They're not interested. But 5%, but that's still 10. I don't need 200. I need 1.
Right.
I don't.
Yeah.
And so the builders, they can't build this stuff fast enough, number 1. And number 2 is what they're building, it ain't an entry-level rental home. It's not.
Yeah.
So I don't see that. That's not going to change anything. And even with all these big, huge new buildings, we just had a property that came on the market. I went and looked at it because I'm addicted. I look at everything. And the number was they were selling the lot, the plans, and all the approvals. When it was all said and done, the construction number they were carrying on the units for a 800 square foot, 2-bedroom, $320,000 per unit is what they were carrying on that unit.
Okay.
That works in Mountain View, California.
Right.
That does not work in New Hampshire. It doesn't. Because literally 2 years ago, that number was 160.
Yeah, I got you.
So from a builder perspective, it ain't happening there. They're not going to be able to do it. They have to build it for somebody that's going to buy it because the debt that you have to carry on 320 is way too much. It's like, it makes it a $3,000, $4,000 apartment. Can't do it.
That's where again, I think the Crash Bros are genius talking about the shadow inventory because it's so scary because they never have to talk reality. I've talked to a couple of builders over the last 6 weeks. Simon from Uneducated Economist put this out 6 or 8 weeks ago, and I followed up with some builders. Right. There's the Pulte and the Lennars, the top, whatever, 5 or 10 of them. They're going to be fine. They can have access to capital. They're good. But there's this next tier that did 50 to 100 units. All of them said they're not breaking ground on any new projects. They will finish what is in the works, but they are not breaking ground. And what I want people to hear from that is that doesn't impact today. That's going to mean inventory in March, April, and May is not going to be there.
No.
And to Dion's point earlier, do you think builders are stupid? Of course not. They're not building. They're keeping their money in a savings account or money market account making 5%. So builders aren't stupid. Kind of closing out on shadow inventory. I think the one thing that is interesting is apparently there's all kinds of sellers who want to sell their home that is going to destroy the housing market, right? There are all these people who have had kids and changed jobs and all of these things. They can't sell their home because it doesn't make financial sense. But at some point, rates are going to fall and all of this inventory is going to come on at once and it's going to destroy the housing market with a wave of supply. We'll go to you first this time, Matt. What do you think about that one?
No, it's not going to be a thing. It's not going to be a thing. Like, keep on wishing. Keep on look, the Crash Bros need to be like water. They're going to have to keep on flowing into wherever the next narrative takes them. And all it does is make you look dumber. That's all it does. You just look dumber. Big, dumb, dopey, dippy chips. That's all. Just dummies.
That's all.
Sorry.
That's it.
It's
That's it.
they don't get it because they're not looking at the fundamentals. They're easily swayed. These are the same doofuses that bought SafeMoon, Seifu, Dogecoin. Same people. Same people. Same people. You bought all that stuff and that's worked out really well for you. That's worked out awesome. You got rugged about 19 times before you figured out, this might not be the best idea. Probably should get to a stable coin. So enjoy the path. Like, you're going to keep on chasing being right. And eventually, I'll give you credit. Eventually, the sun shines on every dog's ass because the dog was too tired and went in the door the wrong way. Like, that's how it goes. So you'll eventually get there. You'll eventually be right about something, but we're just going to have spent another decade making more money and teaching other people how to get financial freedom while you're probably still shopping for a house waiting for rates to come down. Good luck with that.
Yeah. And your rents have doubled. Dion, what do you think about this? Again, all this supply coming. Again, I'm hearing it more and more. Rates are going to fall to 5%. Waves of supply are coming. Prices are going to crash. And what do you think?
I love that Matt said that the crash bows are dumb and they have to be like water, because I did a video last week on the dumbing continues.
I saw the title. I didn't watch the video.
So there's a guy that I watch. He's the Smart Money Bro. I love his content, right? Like 98% of his videos, it's the fundamentals of and make more, spend less, save and invest the difference, right? He's got great advice. He finally, because he doesn't make these, he finally made a crash video. And it really was 40% crash coming. Don't buy a house yet. The title said, don't buy a house yet. It was all the Crash Bro stuff. And the video was about 14 minutes of him explaining. He was saying a crash is coming, but he didn't understand real estate. And he gave all of the reasons why a crash can't come. There's no supply. There's a rate lock. Like, I listed out all the reasons why there can't be a crash, trying to say, and that's why I said the dumbing continues. They're going to go to wherever we'll get the clicks.
Yeah. And
people want to watch crash videos because a topic we're doing another video on today is why we want to crash.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the crash bros are smart. They're like builders. They're smart. They're going to go to the title and this fuzzy, scary thing right now with shadow inventory. And in 2 months, it'll be something new because last, that was the bank failures Matt was talking about. Remember, that was everywhere. When all the banks fail, people thought that would be a bad thing for real estate. Nothing changes if you own real estate. Somebody else owns your note. You pay the payment to someone else. So no, I still don't see shadow inventory coming. I don't see it coming from almost any of the topics we talked about unless we add the element of several years,
right?
Which we would be able to watch and track the data on in those years.
Yeah. At the end of the day, I think there will be 1, 2, maybe 10, 15 kind of localized market. I always pick on Dollywood because that was referenced in some video I saw. That really could feel a true crash. We're talking 20% or greater because they got over-rotated on a thing.
Yeah.
And, maybe there's a builder who got stupid and built 1,000 new homes in the middle of nowhere, and that's going to be a bust. Maybe. But it's not going to be national, right? There's not 100 stupid builders. There's not 100 locations like New York kicking out Airbnb. There's not 100 Dollywoods where, seemingly everybody came in and bought a unit. There will be some very localized paying. Know your buy box, know your area. But we talk national, and, most of these will be farts in the wind or just such a slow burn as to be years away. Guys, Dion, where can people find you?
So the last thing, I hate the way my memory works because this is what I was going to say when you asked, but on this inventory, if interest rates drop, there's a massive surge of people who could sell because they want to sell their house. What do they become?
Buyers,
right? So that's the lever that pulls both sides again. You can find me right here on YouTube, Dion Talk Financial Freedom, where I do things like every week, Tuesday, 4 p.m. Pacific, I answer questions for a couple of hours, however long the questions last. And this week, due to viewers' requests, the topic at the intro, giving people to get time to get questions in the comments, is Section 8. The good, the bad, from the ugly. All the pros and cons.
Good, the bad, from the you are so creative. That's awesome. Matt, closing thoughts, where they can find you?
Faced with that truth every day, we are, Dion. Faced with that truth every day. Lumberjack Landlord on YouTube and Instagram, 11:30 a.m. Eastern time on Sundays. And I will be sitting there doing work tonight in front of Dion's live stream like I always am. Sometimes when I see something really objectionable, I throw a comment in. It's never by Dion. It's always by someone in the comments.
You guys are awesome. Thanks again.